We just got a fantastic episode of House of the Dragon. Season 1, Episode 5, We Light the Way, just aired, and in it we met one new dragon, that being Meleys, known as the Red Queen. And in the trailer for Episode 6, we saw a few more, I believe 3 additional new dragons, all of which have pretty interesting history and lore surrounding them. So I thought for tonight's video I could delve into that and explain a little bit more. I will note that it will spoil what dragons are in Episode 6, based on my approximation, but it will not spoil anything that has not been revealed for the show as a whole thus far. So yeah, it's just basically a history lesson. So yeah, if you enjoy this and this kind of content, be sure to subscribe. I love talking about House of the Dragon, and I love to talk about it more. So yeah, let's jump into the dragons as they currently stand. This episode, we meet Meleys, the dragon known as the Red Queen. She's ridden by Princess Rhaenys Targaryen, who's also known as the Queen Who Never Was. That's the wife of the Sea Snake as well. Though Rhaenys was not her first rider. Meleys is one of the older dragons in our story, though she's only had 2 riders in her entire lifetime. She was an adult in the year 75 AC, which is about 45 years prior to the current timeline of House of the Dragon. She was considered to be, at that time, one of the swiftest dragons in Westeros, easily outpacing both Caraxes, Daemon's dragon, the weird noodle-looking guy, and Vhagar, who's the oldest dragon alive. By the time of our story, Meleys is significantly older and perhaps a tad lazy, but is still quite fearsome whenever she is aroused. She's also known as quite a smart dragon. That said, in 75 AC, is when the first rider of Meleys was decided. That was Princess Alyssa Targaryen. Alyssa Targaryen is the mother of both Viserys and Daemon, and grandmother to Rhaenyra, though I don't know if they would have ever met. She died quite a while ago, but it is said that she took her 9-day-old son Viserys to her chest and took him flying on Meleys around the Red Keep. She did the same in 81 AC with her second son, Daemon, within a fortnight of his birth. It's also quite interesting that this is the first dragon that both of these two rode, despite them coming into great opposition with her eventual rider, that being Rhaenys, particularly at the Great Council that we saw opening the first episode of the series. So yeah, Rhaenys is quite a majestic dragon, and definitely one of the bigger ones that we've seen so far, seeing as it is so much older than the others, and especially when considering how old Drogon is in the final seasons of Game of Thrones. Drogon's only like 3 or 4 at that point, and already massive. You can only imagine how big some of these older dragons get. We've also got a graphic here comparing a number of dragon sizes from both this conflict and one from the main series. This seems mostly accurate to me, though I will say that I think Drogon is perhaps too big as compared to how big he was in the final season, especially in the books, just generally, because dragons do not grow that fast. But yeah, as you can see, the size comparison here between these dragons. And it is worth noting that there will be a time skip following this episode, following episode 5. So Arrax will be a good deal bigger after that time because he is still maturing to a degree. But yeah, that's the main size comparison there. The first dragon we see in the trailer for next week's episode is Vhagar. Vhagar is the oldest of the currently living dragons. It was born in the year 52 before Conquest. That is before Aegon united the 7 kingdoms, other than Dorne. And because of this, Vhagar has become massive. She is far and away the largest dragon we will see in the story, and she is quite powerful due to this. She was born on Dragonstone, as many dragons are, and she's also named after a god of Old Valyria, which I always think is a cool way to tie it back to the culture of A Song of Ice and Fire and of the House Targaryen generally, as I think it's interesting to see those old gods that might have been worshipped in this land that has been wiped out by some ancient disaster, and see those names kind of reincarnated in dragons, as we see with Vhagar and Arrax, who's also named after a dragon from the Valyrian Freehold. Vhagar's first rider was Aegon's sister and wife, Visenya. She was older than Aegon and the more serious of his 2 sisters. She was very warlike and tended to prefer fighting in battle. She also wielded the sword Dark Sister, which has been passed on to Daemon Targaryen. We saw him using it a bunch in episode 3 to free the Sepstones from the crab feeder. It's a very storied sword, and the name Dark Sister seems to derive from Visenya's general demeanor and personality. Vhagar fought in a massive number of battles, both during the conquest of Westeros and the about 10 years of war in Dorne that followed the initial conquest, as Dorne was not initially conquered in that first conquest. When King Aegon died in the year 37 after conquest, it was Vhagar who supplied the flames to light his funeral pyre. I thought that was pretty interesting. I didn't know it before researching for this video. I would have assumed it was Balerion. And that could speak to some degree to the relationship between Visenya and Aegon, as the relationships between Dragons often reflect the relationships between their riders. We saw this in episode 2 when Caraxes was quite excited to see Cyrax when Rhaenyra arrived on Dragonstone. Visenya died in 44 after Conquest, leaving Vhagar without a rider. However, after 29 years of being riderless and spending that time on Dragonstone or later in the Dragon Pit, it was eventually claimed by Prince Balon the Brave, who we just heard about in episode 4. The part of his title, the Brave, is from claiming this ancient dragon, as it's at this point the second oldest in existence. Vhagar was used at this point to burn the Dornish fleets that were invading the Stormland in 83 AC with Caraxes and Vermithor. One of those two dragons we've already met. Caraxes is Daemon's dragon, and Vhagar was ridden by Balon, and Balon was mentioned because he is the father of Viserys and of Daemon. So that title, the Brave, can very much be applied to Daemon. You can see where that was passed down, though it seems like Viserys is considerably less brave at this point. Vhagar was then riderless after Balon's death in 101 AC. However, Laena Velaryon soon claimed it as well. It was at the age of 12, so assumedly soon after we saw her in episode 2, soon after she had been intended to be betrothed to Viserys. And she really loves to fly, as we saw. And yeah, she's very much claimed a very powerful dragon. So it shows that she's a very capable dragon rider and potentially a very capable warrior in the future, which is good to consider. It is worth noting that at the current year of Rhaenyra's wedding, which is 114 AC, Vhagar is 166 years old at that point. So it's in all likelihood the largest and oldest creature alive at this point. Likely the last creature alive that had seen Aegon's conquest, that had met the Conqueror, who had lived prior to him taking Westeros, and had lived with him on Dragonstone during the Century of Blood. So Vhagar is a very impressive dragon, and that is very well known. The ability to even ride Vhagar is sort of treated as a very symbol of majesty and of power. Another dragon we got a glimpse of in the promo is Dreamfyre, and that is spelled with a Y. Dreamfyre was hatched during the first king's reign, Aegon I Targaryen. As a hatchling, she was bonded with the 9-year-old princess Rhaena Targaryen, who was the first grandchild of Aegon I. 3 years later, she became Dreamfyre's rider. Rhaena was later wed to her brother Aegon and sent on a royal progress by her father, King Aenys I. She wanted to take Dreamfyre with her, but it was forbidden. King Aenys died in 42 AC, and the crown was usurped by her uncle, Maegor, rather than passing to her. This is a similar situation to what we saw with Rhaenys in the recent past that we saw in the flashback in the first episode of House of the Dragon. There's kind of a general tradition of not really considering women fully in the line of succession, which in this case seems like it would have been a poor choice because Dreamfyre Rhaenyra seems like she would have been a good ruler. She also had twin daughters later who were sent into hiding while she was hiding from her uncle Maegor. Dreamfyre produced numerous clutches of eggs, and it's actually worth noting that one of these sets of eggs were taken and sold off in Braavos, which is actually where we find Daenerys finding her dragon eggs in the main series, A Song of Ice and Fire. So there are prominent theories that the 3 eggs that hatch into Drogon, Viserion, and Rhaegal are actually eggs from Dreamfyre that just petrified over the ages. However, Rhaena died in the year 73 AC, which is about 30 years before the beginning of House of the Dragon. So because of this, Dreamfyre has made her lair in the Dragon Pit in King's Landing, and that is where she appears to be in this promo. I won't say anything further than that because I do know what exactly is going on there, but I don't wish to spoil it for those who have not read the book. And a final short note here, we see one more dragon in the trailer. It's a baby, or a young dragon at least, and it appears to be one of Rhaenyra's kids who is kind of training this dragon. You see him telling it to Dracarys to burn, which is quite fun, and it's nice to see younger people beginning to bond with dragons. It makes sense with this younger generation beginning to grow up, including both Alicent's kids and Rhaenyra's kids. If I had to guess, Vermax was this dragon. That is the dragon of Rhaenyra's eldest son, Prince Jaehaerys Targaryen, or just Jace, he's called. And there really isn't that much history around him because he's so young, but it is still good to see these new dragons represented. If it were to be somebody else's, I could also see it being Arrax, who's the dragon of Lucerys Velaryon, who is the second son of Rhaenyra. But yeah, I think that's nice to see. And it's always nice to see a baby dragon. I think they're very cute. So that has been the video going into the history of the new dragons we've just seen in episode 5 and in the promo for episode 6. What did you think of these dragons and of this episode? I was a big fan of it personally. I'll probably make another video later this week talking about some of the thematic things within it. I thought it was very interesting and how it kind of planted the seeds and solidified the conflict as we know it and kind of changed the motivations of some book characters in some interesting ways. And I really think they're going in a cool direction with this. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment, let me know which of the dragons is your favorite so far. And yeah, thank you all for watching.